Band, Swedish Radio, Radio Jonst, Shortwave Archive, Tape SK46. Announcer, Sten Broman style, dry, precise, slightly pumped through an old Bakelite microphone. Ibara Radiationst I Stockholm. It is precisely 1400 hours on a gray, damp Tuesday in May 1946. If you are just tuning in across Skåne, we must interrupt our usual afternoon broadcast of accordion music and weather reports from Malmö to address an extraordinary, highly irregular bulletin coming out of the Ängelholm area. Switchboards at the Royal Air Force Base at F10 Ängelholm and local police stations in Karlsson have been overwhelmed for the past 20 minutes. We go live now to our field reporter, Gusta Lindström, who is currently stationed on the forest road just outside the town limits. Gusta, can you hear us? Reporter Gusta Lindström, voice hushed, competing with the damp rustle of pine needles and distant engine idling. I hear you clearly, Sten. Though I must confess, I'd rather be sitting inside a warm cafe with a cup of strong coffee right now than standing in this bloody clearing. Announcer. Describe your surroundings, Gusta. What are listeners in Stockholm supposed to make of these military dispatches? Reporter. Well, Sten, if you told me this morning that I'd be watching a squad of Swedish Air Force officers scratch their heads over a circular scorched patch of earth surrounded by flattened pine saplings, I'd have told you to lay off the snaps. But here we are. According to eyewitnesses, local farmers who were out early checking their fields near Karlsson, this wasn't a standard military aircraft accident. At roughly 11 o'clock this morning, a roaring, whistling sound tore through the low cloud cover. They didn't see a propeller, they didn't see wings. They saw a glowing saucer-shaped object, bright as polished aluminum, skimming right above the treetops before it came down with a heavy, dull thud right here in the clearing. Announcer. A saucer-shaped object. Are we talking about some kind of experimental German rocket debris drifting over the Baltic, Gusta? Reporter. That was my first thought, Sten. Everyone's jumpy after the ghost rockets we kept seeing over the country last summer. But the officers from F10 are telling a different story off the record. I spoke just a moment ago with Captain Ljunggren of the local garrison. He won't let me get within 50 meters of the impact zone because of what he calls unexplained thermal residual activity, but I can see it with my own binoculars through the pine trunks. It's an enormous flattened disc roughly 20 meters across. No seams, no rivets, no exhaust ports. Just a seamless, dull gray shell sitting in the middle of a freshly flattened crater. And the local foresters swear they saw something else before the military cordon went up. Announcer. Something else? Do you mean crew, Gusta? Reporter. That's what the milkman from the nearby farm is swearing up and down to the military police. He claims he saw two figures, short, clad in tight metallic-looking suits, scurrying away from the craft toward the deeper thicket before the first patrol car arrived. The police are treating it as a local disturbance, of course, but the way the military engineers are handling their Geiger counters around that hull tells me they aren't looking for stray aviation scrap. A sudden metallic clatter and sharp radio interference crackles across the line. Reporter, voice rising, distracted. Hold on, Sten, Captain Ljunggren is shouting something over at the perimeter guard. They're pulling the canvas tarp away from a section of the hull. Wait, the metal. It's changing color under the daylight, shifting from gray to a faint, iridescent violet. Announcer. Gusta? Gusta, are you still there? A loud, piercing electromagnetic squeal cuts through the shortwave feed, completely drowning out the studio audio. Announcer. Listeners, you seem to have lost our line to Ängelholm. The transmission feed from the local exchange has dropped dead. We are awaiting further word from the general staff in Stockholm. In the meantime, please remain calm, lock your bicycle sheds, and resume your normal afternoon activities while we attempt to re-establish contact with our field team. A long, continuous shortwave tone fades into static. Radio static hiss deepening into low-frequency hum. Announcer, Sten Broman style, voice tense, discarding the dry professionalism. Orade listener. Dear listeners, we have just received an urgent overriding communique from the Royal Defense Staff in Stockholm. Please remain calm, but all civilian movement across Skåne County is being restricted under emergency civil defense protocols. We go back live now to our secondary transmission line. We have managed to patch into an open military field telephone used by the Home Guard battalion stationed just outside Ängelholm. Military officer, voice strained, hectic shouting in Swedish heard behind him. Captain Bergström Makar. If anyone is still monitoring this frequency, turn off your domestic radios immediately. Disconnect your aerials. Announcer. Captain Bergström, can you hear us? This is Radiotjänst in Stockholm. What is the status of the clearing at Karlsson? Has the object been secured? Captain Bergström. Secured? Helvete, man, there is nothing left to secure. We didn't recover an aircraft. We invited a lightning bolt into our backyard. 30 minutes ago, our engineering platoon attempted to clamp an electromagnetic tow cable onto the whole perimeter. The moment the steel touched that iridescent violet surface, it didn't spark, it melted. Not from heat, but from some kind of reverse induction discharge that liquefied the winch motor instantly. And then the hull opened. Contact with the occupants? Captain Bergström, breathing heavily, distant sound of rapid boots on gravel, and shouted orders. There were no boarding ramps. There were no doors. A section of the upper plate simply liquefied and slid away like oil on water. And out of it? A deafening, low-pitched pulse shakes the microphone, sounding like a metallic heartbeat that slows the audio tape down. Captain Bergström screaming over the drone. They aren't human. They aren't even biological as we understand it. They're tall, impossibly slender, wrapped in segmented suits that shimmer like polished mercury. They don't walk, they glide just inches above the pine needles, and they are carrying a sudden blinding burst of white noise and a high-pitched squeal that overloads the transmitter tubes. Captain Bergström. No, wait. Back? A single piercing crack of electromagnetic energy, sounding like a lightning strike indoors, echoes through the line. The telephone feed cuts out with a sharp electrical snap. Announcer, silence in the studio for 3 seconds, then a ragged whisper. The line has gone dead. Listeners, the telegraph office in Malmö is reporting total power failure across the entire municipal grid. Military aircraft from F-10 have lost all radar contact with the region. If you are in Ängelholm, in Helsingborg, anywhere across southern Sweden, do not look out your windows. Secure your doors. The state radio network is going off the air. May God save us all. The transmitter tube blows with a soft pop, leaving only the quiet, abject static of dead air. Heavy static, the frantic clicking of a radio dial being turned, scattered fragments of frantic Morse code, followed by sudden eerie clarity on the 40-meter band. Unknown broadcaster, voice hushed. Breathless, speaking very close to the microphone. CQ, calling any station receiving. This is amateur operator SM7 Alpha, broadcasting from an attic in Helsingborg. Is anyone in Denmark monitoring this frequency? Copenhagen, please respond. Only the crackle of static replies. SM7 Alpha, Lars. If anyone across the sound is listening, the state radio is dead. Radiotjänst went off the air 12 minutes ago. The streetlights here in Helsingborg are completely dark. The power didn't just fail. The bulbs in my desk lamp shattered. I'm running this transmitter off a scavenged lorry battery. I don't know what happened at the Ängelholm garrison, but I am looking north through my skylight toward the Björ Peninsula. The sky isn't burning. There is no smoke. Instead, there is this massive dome-shaped aurora. A cold, pulsing violet light expanding over the forests. It's moving. Wait. I'm going to try and patch my receiver into the Swedish Air Force emergency frequency. I saw 2 J-22 fighter planes scramble from a reserve strip about 5 minutes ago, heading straight for that glow. Let me tune the dial. The sound of a heavy Bakelite dial clunking into place, followed by the high-pitched whine of aviation radio traffic. Fighter pilot, gulp, distorted, voice shaking over engine noise. Red 2, do you have visual? I'm banking over the Karlsson clearing now. Altitude 1,000 meters. Red 2, static heavy. I have visual, red leader. But, God in heaven, what am I looking at? The forest is gone. Red leader. Command, are you receiving this? There is no crater. The pines haven't been burned, they've been crystallized. The entire square kilometer looks like it's been turned to spun glass. It's reflecting the moonlight perfectly. And the craft. Red 2, panicking. Red leader, my instruments are spinning. The altimeter is dead. The compass is rotating like a top. Red leader. Pull up, red 2. Break formation and pull. A bizarre harmonic chime interrupts the military feed. IT does not sound like machinery. IT sounds like a chord played on a vast metallic organ, reverberating with mathematical precision. Red 2. My engine. The propeller is freezing up. It's not stalling, the metal is fusing together. A soft, almost gentle swooshing sound over the radio, replacing the roar of the aircraft engines. Then absolute silence on the military band. SM-7 Alpha, Lars, breathing heavily, trembling. They didn't crash. There was no explosion. The signal just evaporated. The harmonic chime heard on the aircraft frequency suddenly bleeds over into Lars's attic broadcast, causing the lorry battery to hiss with the spark of overloaded current. SM-7 Alpha, Lars. The hum. I can hear it through the window now, not just on the receiver. It's coming down the coast. The needle on my voltmeter is pinned to the absolute maximum, but nothing is plugged in. The hair on my arms is standing straight up. A dog howls pitifully in the distance, cut short abruptly by a thick, heavy silence that seems to press against the microphone itself. SM-7 Alpha, Lars whispering now, terrified. The violet light is rolling over the rooftops of Helsingborg like a fog. It's moving through the streets. I can see them down there. They aren't marching. They are just gliding. Tall, shimmering columns of silver moving through the alleyways, stopping at the doors, touching the brickwork. Where they touch the houses, the frost spreads instantly. They aren't invading us with weapons. They're altering the environment. They're changing the temperature, the atmosphere. It smells like ozone and liquid ammonia. One of them has stopped, right below my window. LOW throbbing vibration begins to rattle the wooden planks of the attic. The audio captures the sound of frost rapidly cracking and spreading across glass. SM-7 Alpha, Lars, is looking up. It doesn't have a face, just a smooth, mirrored plane where a face should be. But it knows I'm here. It knows I'm transmitting. The window pane is freezing over. The glass is turning to ice. The metallic chime sounds again, deafeningly close now, vibrating the microphone so hard the audio distorts into a sickening tremolo. SM-7 Alpha, Lars. If anyone can hear this, tell the military not to shoot. Guns do nothing. Tell them to. The glass shatters inward with the sound of 1,000 wind chimes. A rush of unnaturally cold air hits the microphone, followed by a single, fluid metallic slither. The radio dead air crackles with frost, the tape warping sluggishly as the room drops to sub-zero temperatures in seconds, until the broadcast finally freezes into complete, unyielding silence. The audio cassette hisses frozen, the tape motor slowing down to a heavy, metallic drone under the intense cold before IT stalls completely. 3 minutes of absolute, unbroken static. No wind, no traffic, no human artifact. Only the sub-audible hum of an electromagnetic field pulsing at a constant LOW frequency. The tape deck motor gives a sudden desperate jerk, kicking back to life as the tape warps and slides forward. The recorder, background microphone picking up the interior of the abandoned attic in Helsingborg. Clink, clink. The sound of light, measured footsteps on frozen floorboards. They do not sound like boots striking wood. They sound like dense quartz rods tapping against marble, rhythmic, unhurried, mathematically precise. LOW resonant drone begins to build. It is harmonic chime again, but distorted, rendered slow and resonant, like an organ pipe played deep inside a cave of ice. The recording captures a synthesized multi-tonal voice, not spoken through vocal cords, but projected directly as acoustic resonance into the air. Specimen designation: Northern European sector. Organic complexity: redundant. Cognitive framework: reactive, linear. Sample collection: concluded. A fluid, gliding shift of metallic fabric against the floor. Atmospheric conditioning: phase 2 initiated. Temperature variance achieving optimal parameters. The crust is responsive. A sharp, dry crack, like the sound of an ice sheet splitting across a frozen fjord. The audio feed shifts, the stereo channels tearing apart as the frequency is forcibly overridden by an external carrier wave. The sound of Helsingborg from the rooftops. No church bells, no sirens. Just the faint, horrifying whisper of millions of microscopic crystals, forming simultaneously upon every leaf, every vehicle, every piece of glass across the entire coastline of southern Sweden. A sudden, sharp burst of white noise as the shortwave transmitter tube in the attic finally explodes from surge voltage. The tape keeps running in total silence, capturing only the faint, ragged rhythm of the unstable world, waiting for the next phase of the sweep. Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO-UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, 1946, Ängelholm Landing, Sweden. Sweden's foundational close encounter. As we expand our journey into the realm of UFOs, UAPs, and paranormal phenomena, we look far beyond the borders of the United States to examine how other nations and their citizens perceive these profound mysteries. Have you ever wondered what high strangeness looks like through the lens of a different culture and government? While American ufology has historically been dominated by military secrecy, intelligence gatekeeping, and institutional stigma, nations across the globe approach the unknown with entirely unique philosophies. From Chile's state-backed scientific transparency through CFAA to Sweden's meticulous civil society-led investigations with UFO-Sverige, exploring international skies reveals that our planet's shared mystery is filtered through vastly different cultural and political mirrors. Join us as we step outside the traditional American paradigm and discover how the rest of the world looks up, investigates, and embraces the unknown. The core narrative of the May 18, 1946, Ängelholm incident, documented by Swedish entrepreneur and witness Gösta Carlsson, and subsequently subjected to decades of rigorous forensic, archival, and journalistic investigation by organizations like UFO-Sverige, led by investigator Claes Fan, stands as one of the most vividly detailed close encounters in European history. Occurring more than a year before Kenneth Arnold's 1947 sighting and the Roswell crash, this event established early archetypes for contactee lore, humanoid descriptions, and physical trace cases. The May 18, 1946 encounter. The setting of the encounter played a crucial role in its isolation and sensory impact, capturing a moment of transition in post-World War II Sweden. On the night of May 18, 1946, Gösta Carlsson, then a 28-year-old beekeeper, amateur athlete, and local businessman, was walking through the dense coastal pine forest of Kärnskogen, locally known as Siberianskogen or the Siberian Forest, near the coastal town of Ängelholm, returning from Skaldurviken Beach after checking on his properties and business interests. As Carlsson moved deeper into the forest trails, his attention was caught by rhythmic, pulsing flashes of colored light, filtering through the dense canopy of pine trees. Believing initially that a traveling carnival, an illegal gathering, or a local military exercise was underway in the woods, he extinguished his cigarette, left the path, and stealthily crept toward the source of the illumination. Emerging quietly into a secluded natural clearing surrounded by tall pines, Carlsson discovered an object that completely upended his expectations. Resting in the center of the clearing was a structured, self-illuminated flying machine. His initial mundane assumption that it was some form of portable amusement park ride or promotional tent evaporated instantly as he observed its structural integrity and the non-human intelligence operating around it. Carlsson's mechanical background, he was mechanically inclined and ran local commercial enterprises, enabled him to provide remarkably precise architectural observations of the vessel. The craft was shaped like a classic disc, featuring a diameter of approximately 8 meters, roughly 26 feet. It sat upon an elevated oval base, supported by 3 distinct retractable telescopic landing legs that sank slightly into the forest floor. The hull possessed a smooth, uniform texture entirely devoid of visible seams, rivets, welding lines, or panel joints. It appeared molded from a single piece of dull metallic or composite material that absorbed and diffused the forest light, rather than reflecting it mirror-like. Rising from the apex of the disc was a central, periscope-like column or dome. From this upper structure, a shifting, fountain-like display of purple and red light pulsed rhythmically, washing over the surrounding pine branches. As Carlsson crept closer to the perimeter of the clearing, A heavy, sharp odor dominated his senses. He described it as an intense concentration of ozone, resembling the smell of air following a violent electrical thunderstorm or operating heavy high-voltage electrical equipment, marking a frequent physiological signal in high-strangeness close encounters. The occupants spaced Nordics and advanced field technology. Perhaps the most culturally influential aspect of the encounter was Carlsson's detailed description of the craft's crew, anticipating the archetype later termed as Space Nordics. Carlsson observed 6 humanoid occupants moving purposefully around the craft. 3 men worked methodically near the illuminated oval cabin windows, while 3 women stood at ground level near the landing gear. They were strikingly tall, exceptionally healthy, and possessed flawless athletic builds, featuring radiant pale skin and glowing long blonde hair. The occupants wore tight-fitting, one-piece white flight suits, molded to their bodies without bulky zippers or seams, complete with dark boots, utilitarian utility belts, and specialized headgear fitted with earplug-like devices or communication nodes over their ears. As Carlsson attempted to creep closer for a better view, one of the female occupants turned toward him, raising a small chest-mounted metallic device resembling a box camera or portable projector. A visible or energetic barrier, a localized force field, projected toward Carlsson, producing a paralyzing wave of pressure and static electricity that forced him backward into the brush without causing physical injury. After observing the crew complete their tasks, Carlsson retreated toward the nearby sand dunes. The humanoid smoothly reboarded the craft through a concealed portal or transparency. Without warning, the craft lifted off vertically from its telescopic landing legs. In stark contrast to contemporary 1940s aircraft, the liftoff produced a low, humming drone resembling the heavy motor of a large vacuum cleaner, mixed with a resonant electromagnetic thrum. As the disk rose above the pine canopy, it became enveloped in a pulsing, synchronized aura of deep red and purple light. It hovered momentarily at treetop height before executing an instantaneous silent vertical acceleration, shooting upward at incredible speed until it vanished into the overcast night sky. Returning to the clearing on the morning of May 19, 1946, Carlsson sought to verify whether the extraordinary event was real. What he discovered anchored the experience in physical reality. The forest floor bore unmistakable structural evidence of heavy weight and extreme heat. Carlsson located 3 evenly spaced, deep circular indentations forming a triangular footprint corresponding to the telescopic landing legs. The pine needles and moss within and directly surrounding the depressions were scorched, charred, and heavily crushed, indicating immense downward pressure and localized thermal radiation. Carlsson reported finding several small objects left behind by the occupants, including miniature drinking cups or vessels containing a residual, highly fragrant yellowish liquid with an unfamiliar aromatic profile. Among the debris, Carlsson allegedly recovered a transparent, glass-like crystal rod etched with intricate, precise geometric symbols resembling ancient Scandinavian runes or stylized glyphs alongside a small, unusual gold ring. While skeptical investigators noted these physical artifacts lacked verifiable chain of custody documentation, Carlsson preserved them as central proofs of his encounter. Lacking any prior background in science or pharmacology, Carlsson reported entering recurring deep meditative and dream-like states following the landing. During these states, the entities allegedly transmitted complex biochemical formulas and methodologies directly into his mind, focused on extracting the nutrient-dense components of flower pollen. Overcoming the human digestive barrier, the resilient outer shell, or exine of pollen grains, Carlsson established AB Cernel in Ängelholm. The company pioneered standardized pollen extracts, Cernidin for prostate and immune health. As the multimillionaire pollen king Palenkinjan, Carlsson consistently credited his entire business empire, scientific breakthroughs, and wealth entirely to the extraterrestrial guidance received during and after the 1946 landing. The Ängelholm UFO Monument. In 1972, utilizing a substantial portion of his pharmaceutical fortune and meticulous measurements of the original landing impressions, Carlsson transformed the forest clearing into a permanent public memorial near Roboka Beach. Carlsson commissioned professional stonemasons, concrete fabricators, and landscape designers, using exact measurements taken in May 1946. to ensure complete physical fidelity to the event while securing coordination with municipal authorities. At the heart of the clearing rests a massive 3-ton concrete sculpture representing the disc-shaped craft, accurately reproducing the low-profile disc, the raised central dome, and the smooth hull. Elevated on a stylized circular base, the saucer sculpture is surrounded by cast concrete markers and low pillars that precisely duplicate the triangular geometry, depth, and spatial dimensions of the original telescopic landing gear impressions. Stone pillars positioned around the perimeter feature engraved copper plaques detailing Carlsson's eyewitness testimony in Swedish. Maintained as a municipal heritage landmark and global ufological pilgrimage site, the monument physically bridges anomalous high strangeness, European folklore, and corporate history. The study of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, reveals far more than just physical anomalies in our skies. It acts as a mirror reflecting the cultural, institutional, and psychological frameworks of the societies observing them. When examining how nations process high strangeness, the contrast between Sweden and the United States stands out sharply. Although both countries possess advanced technological infrastructures and a robust history of anomalous sightings, their societal and institutional responses follow paths that diverge significantly from one another. This divergence begins at the institutional level. In Sweden, the investigation of the unknown has been championed primarily through civil society research and transparent documentation, rather than heavy military classification. Through organizations like UFO-Sverige, led by researchers such as Claes Fan, Sweden approached ufology with methodical archiving, rigorous field investigations, and forensic analysis. While the Swedish government maintained standard air defense vigilance, the broader societal response embraced open documentation, public museums, and historical preservation. This is best exemplified by the Ängelholm UFO monument, erected by witness Gustav Carlsson to commemorate his 1946 encounter, and seamlessly integrated into local municipal heritage. In stark contrast, the United States built its historical UFO framework around military gatekeeping, national security containment, and institutional secrecy. From early military projects to modern bureaucratic entities, the U.S. paradigm has long been bogged down by institutional friction and a defensive posture. Treating the unknown primarily as a counterintelligence risk or an airspace vulnerability, American authorities fostered an environment of compartmented secrecy rather than open scientific inquiry. This institutional disparity is mirrored in how each society integrates the paranormal into its cultural fabric. In Sweden, encounters featuring physical trace evidence, contactee narratives, and even extraordinary industrial developments, such as the rise of Carlsson's Sernal-Pollen Empire, became woven into local folklore and municipal history. Witnesses and researchers operated within an open, accepting cultural climate that valued historical curiosity and documentation over ridicule. Meanwhile, American culture historically oscillated between intense social stigma and sensationalized media exploitation. Pilots, military personnel, and civilian witnesses reporting high strangeness in the U.S. frequently faced professional mockery, career damage, and institutional skepticism, cultivating a deep culture of silence that persists to this day. Ultimately, Sweden demonstrates that a society can embrace the mysteries of the unknown with meticulous civilian research, historical transparency, and cultural acceptance. While the United States remains locked in a top-down, often contentious struggle for state-sanctioned disclosure, Sweden stands as a testament to the fact that when high strangeness is approached with open archives and sober inquiry, the unknown transforms from a classified secret into a fascinating part of our shared cultural heritage. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.